Hello, thank you for joining me. My name is Michael Vasquez. You may know me from MV Consulting or the Binghamton Political Buzz Examiner.com, where I am a political commentator. It's been a little while since I've made a video commentary, but I wanted to get back to that, especially since yesterday I had a very interesting conversation with an elected Democrat in the local Broome County community, which I speak to Democrats on a regular basis and many other elected officials. And we brought up a very interesting question, which I want to address here. And these are the top 4 reasons politicians fear interviews with political commentators or just the news media in general. Now, this is not scripted. I just want to go over this because I think it's a very important issue for voters, regardless of political preference or what party you may be in. One of the things that I found is there's about four major questions or issues that are asked or confronted by people in the news media like myself. And I'm going to answer this from my personal experience, but these are questions that I think apply to all news media and how we deal with it. So the first question is, and I've heard this one often myself, you're just trying to do a gotcha interview, that you're just trying to get this gotcha moment on some elected politician. Now this comes out of the fact that for myself, I am a registered Republican, I am a conservative Republican that ran for Congress in 2014, and I do write from a conservative Republican view in my political commentary. This is not a bad thing, and that doesn't mean that every time I do a news event or I'm covering a political interview that I'm looking to get a gotcha, that I'm trying to catch some political, some elected official in some kind of moment to embarrass them. In fact, I go out of my way to make sure that I don't. I think most of the news media do that, at least locally. What some are talking about are more the national news media, which will often do that. And I disagree with that, because what I am doing, I can speak for myself directly, and I believe most of the news media as well. What we're trying to do is inform the voters. And this is something I'm very passionate about. This is why I do this every year, and in fact lose money on it. We're out here, and I'm specifically out here, to try and make sure that voters get answers to the questions that they have. I speak to people throughout the community in Broome County, in the New York 22nd Congressional District, every day. Many people stop me on the street because of the commentary that I do and tell me about the issues that they believe are important. And the politicians need to hear that. It's not about a gotcha. And you can see in my history of videos and interviews that I've done, I have never once put a politician, an elected politician, in a gotcha moment. That's not what it's about. This isn't about my ego. This is about information. And I want to make sure that people get to hear a serious answer. That's why you've often seen in all my videos, in all my interviews that I've had, I ask a question of that politician and then I stop. I let them answer however they wish to answer. And whether that means that sometimes there's clarification that's needed because they mention a statement that is unclear. And I'll clarify that, but again, I let them answer in full. And that's why you see in my videos specifically, full context. I don't edit a word of what is said to me. I don't cut any question that is asked. And I don't in any way change what they're saying and what I'm asking, because you need to know exactly where these people stand. They're here to represent you and your issues, and we can only do that if you're able to hear exactly where they stand and whether or not they're listening to you. So in terms of the gotcha, I've never done it, and I never will, because that's not what this is about. 2, the second biggest question is, well, you have a bias. And as I mentioned, yes, I'm a conservative Republican. And again, I'm speaking for myself, but I don't know of anyone in the news media that doesn't have a political preference. And let's not kid ourselves. They all vote. Many of them are in one party or another. They have their own personal political beliefs. We all do. That's why we're in America. We can have that. To say that I have a political bias is to say that, well, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, WNBF, WTQ, any news station, any personality that does news, does it have one? Of course they do. They're human beings. They're Americans. They have views of their own as well. The difference is that we try, to our best ability, to take that out of our interviews. Now, I want to make sure that's clear. I'm a political commentator. I comment from a viewpoint. That viewpoint happens to be from a conservative Republican. And there are many, matter of fact, most in the news media that are on an entirely different point of view. And that's great, because that's what America's about. That's what the internet's about. That's why we have the YouTube channels, so that people can hear these different views. Because none of us are perfect. None of us have the absolute answer. We all have a piece of that answer, and in coming together and discussing our views and our solutions, we can come together and get the best answer for most of us. And I believe that's very important. And that's why on day one when I ran for Congress, and in every conversation I have with members of Congress, I try to make sure that I'm asking the questions you have. In my commentary, do I have a viewpoint that I believe and many others throughout the New York 22nd District and America in general have? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what happens on the Huffington Post and, oh God, so many others. We all have our viewpoints. That's why you have the choice to listen to whatever viewpoint you want, or to listen to all of us and make your own decision based on that accumulation of information. So to say that someone is biased is just a cop-out, in my opinion. It's just an excuse to not answer a question, especially, as I say in my case, I have never once asked a question that is based on bias or trying to get a gotcha. I'm asking a question that people are asking. But that brings me to question 3. I just want to check my time here. 3 is, you're not nice, or you ask tough questions. Well, yes, I do. And let's be clear. As a political commentator, in interviewing the elected officials we have, I'm not here to be their best buddy. I'm not here to make political friends to advance my career or to advance my life. That's not my job. That's not what I do this for. I do this because this is for people. People who don't have the time to spend, as I do, somewhere between 2 to 12 hours a day reading through the news and trying to sort out where our government is, where our elected officials are. Most people don't get that opportunity. Most people don't get the opportunity to sit down with these elected officials in any circumstance. So my job is to make sure I'm getting the questions they have answered. I've said this many a time, and I've told every politician I've ever had an interview with, or even suggested one with, that the number one thing that will get my ire up and make me really start digging super deep is if they're afraid to answer a question. Because I absolutely believe, if a politician is afraid of answering a question, there's a reason for it. Now, what that reason may be, I don't know. But there's something that the public needs to know if they won't answer. And I strongly believe that any candidate for any elected office, if they won't answer the public, if they will not speak to you and they will not tell you where they stand, they don't deserve to be elected. I don't care what party they're in. And they deserve and need, we deserve and they have an obligation to tell us where they stand on critical issues. Now, whether that issue is abortion, the Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, about electing new school board principals, I don't care what it is, whether it's on the local or national level, depending on the elected office, you deserve to know that. Now, I understand why a lot of news media won't do that, and that's because they're looking for ratings. They want that politician back as often as possible, and they want to get as many viewers to see that interview and to come back and watch their program. I don't get paid by viewers, not in a rating sense. I don't have advertising. I would love to, but I try not to do that because I want you to see what's going on. I'm not beholden to, well, I have to make sure that my sponsor XYZ may cut advertising because I asked a question about the $15 minimum wage. That's a disservice to you, and that's wrong. Yes, if a politician has made a statement and it's questionable or it disagrees with the public, they should justify why they have that position. If a politician is refusing to answer a question about a policy that's going to affect their constituents, yes, they need to be asked that, and they need to give an answer, because the public deserves that. Let's remember, those elected officials are elected. They are here to represent us, not to lead us, not to tell us what to believe, but to hear what we believe and to go with our views. Now, at the same time, they have every right to inform us. I'll give you a great example. If there is a politician, I've talked to many, who believe that the $15 minimum wage in New York proposed by Governor Cuomo is a good thing. Okay. The majority of people, of the voters and constituents in New York State, don't, especially the small business owners. Now, it's incumbent on those politicians who believe in the $15 minimum wage to explain to us why. Why is this going to be a net benefit for all the people of New York, and that it's going to help raise the quality of life for everyone, when we have data and many people believe it will lower that, not only for the people who have the small businesses, but also, and most importantly, for the people who are at the lowest tiers, the lowest skilled workers who are affected by minimum wage. I mean, when they need to answer questions like when the CBO director Keith Hall on February 4th told Congress that there's a direct correlation to raising the minimum wage and the number of people who will lose their jobs that are in minimum wage. And in fact, by raising it to $10.10, it would cause 500,000 people in America to lose their job. Well, when a politician's saying, well, no, we should do it anyway and raise it even higher, which would cause even more people to lose their jobs that are in minimum wage, well, they need to justify why they believe that. And they need to justify why they're putting at risk low minimum wage jobs. And they deserve that. And you know, it's a tough question. But if they're going to put people at risk, they need to explain it. And I'm willing to ask that question because I don't care about a sponsor. I mean, I'd love to get one if you want to be a sponsor, but I'm still going to ask the question because the people need to know the answer. It affects their lives. So I hope that, it's a little bit long, but I hope that answers the question, why am I tough on some of these questions? And I also say, please look back at every interview I've ever had. I ask everyone tough questions in every interview that I do, no matter what party they are or how well that I know them. And I know many of these politicians on both sides very well. But that brings me to my the fourth big question that often gets asked. You know what people will say, and softball questions, which I kind of addressed a little bit just now. But let me address it a little bit better. When often you'll see that someone will go on to whatever station and they'll get asked nothing but softball questions. You know, how are your kids? What color do you like? What's your favorite TV show? Who do you pick on? Dancing with the Stars or Basketball 16, whatever. And that's fine. That's a filler. That's a waste of time, honestly. That has nothing to do with how are you voting on the minimum wage? How are you voting on the New York SAFE Act? Do you believe the executive orders by President Obama infringe on the rights of the American people? Oops, and that's telling me that I'm going for 15 minutes, but that's all right. I want to keep going a little bit further. But this is important. So, do we ask, why ask that softball question? Because whether or not they love a certain type of cereal, whether they prefer this football or basketball team or another one, does that change whether or not passing the minimum wage is going to affect your job? Whether it will exist or whether that company will leave New York State, as an example, and go to Pennsylvania, does it matter what team they like? No, it doesn't. It makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. So why ask that? And I generally won't, because it's not necessary. They're there for a purpose. They're there to inform the public about an issue that's affecting people, their constituents. And so I'm going to stick with those questions. And yes, I've talked to many of these politicians. Most people in the news media do. Let's not kid ourselves. These are the people we report on a regular basis. We do, and especially on the local level and in the state level, these are people that we run into at events that are speaking to our colleagues, that have YouTube videos and news reports and various commentaries written about them on a regular basis. We know these people. They're in our communities. So to say, do I know how they're going to answer a question? To an extent, yes. But then again, no. Because until you ask them the question, you don't know what the answer is going to be. Now, I know some Democrats, as an example, that, and I keep going back to the $15 minimum wage because it's currently something that's being talked about, but you can put in any subject for this. But I know some politicians who are Democrats who are very much in favor of it. I know a few who are also against it. Does that mean when I ask, where do you stand on the minimum wage, that I know that they're going to be against it? Probably, but then again, the question isn't where do you stand on it, it's why do you stand? And the first, where do you stand, and their answer, so we know for sure. And then the other part of it is the follow-up question, why? Why is this something that you're standing for, especially with the objections some may have to that? And there is the crux of it. Do I know where they stand? Maybe. But do we know why they stand for that? Do we know what they believe is going to be the result of the legislation and therefore why they stand for it? I'll even throw in something else, a fifth question that often gets asked, which is, but you're going to try and, excuse me, I have a puppy, but you're going to try and gear the questions towards the position that I believe. No, and I've never done that. And I don't think most of the news media, most of it, do that. We ask questions, and when they know the answer, the direction that someone's going to go in. But if we're doing our job right, it's not, oh, I want you to agree with me. That's not my job. I'm not elected. It's answer this concern. And very often, especially nowadays, we're looking at people giving out 30-second answers in the elected officials. And that's a disservice. I believe it strongly. Nobody can intelligently answer almost any of the questions, actually any of the issues that face even the local community, if not the state and national, in 30 seconds. You can't get an intelligent answer on that. There's too many factors to it. There's too many things that go on. And we need to hear people give their full answer. And it's not about, come to my understanding of it. Please give me your understanding of it. Now, I've said a lot, and it's a little over 15 minutes here, because this is important. And I have a passion for this. This is why I do this. And this is why I reach out to Democrats, to Libertarians, to Conservatives, to Republicans, to have interviews with them, to make sure that their voice is heard. I mean, right now, in the New York 22nd race, I've published 23 articles. I've done 4 interviews with 7 of the candidates, out of 7 candidates. There is no news media that has done more coverage on this race. And that's not because of anything other than I'm trying to make sure you know who is running for Congress, and you get to make an informed decision on who you support, regardless of what I believe, because that's not important. It's your vote that's important. It's your voice that's important, whether that's at the primary or the election, the general election level. Your voice is important. It's your decision, and you deserve to know who these people are. You deserve to know the answers to the questions you have. And I will continue to ask Republicans and Democrats and all of the other parties alike to come on, to have an interview with me, and to answer your questions. Not because I have a predisposed position, or not because I'm trying to do a gotcha moment, but because you want to know the answer, because it's important to making your vote count. And I'm going to continue to do that, and hopefully this answers some of the questions people have about where I stand. It answers some of the questions about the media in general, and for some of those politicians it allays some of their fears. Maybe not. Let me know what you think. Tell me your thoughts about it, and we'll go forward from there. And if I have to, I'll be happy to answer another video with any other questions you may have about why I do what I do, and how. Okay? I thank you, and I hope I have your support in continuing to see my videos and like my articles, and hopefully we'll get more interviews out there for you to see as well.